On this, okay, we're live. This is great.
Okay, excellent.
So I'm I'm just going to go ahead and introduce us both here um and on TikTok. So I'm here. My name is Deborah Heiser. I'm an applied developmental psychologist, and I was the CEO and founder of the Mentor Project for 8 years. And Bruce has an amazing pedigree that I'm kind of excited to introduce. So, Bruce Wiley is a physician scientist. He's also he has an MBA. He has more degrees than I can count, but he runs the consortium out of CUNY. He's done a lot of things in public health. He's also a computer modeler, and he has led a lot of organizations and a lot of programs and a lot of research. So, the two of us here today to talk about leadership. And I think we're going to surprise people a little bit in what we have to say. So, Bruce, did I leave anything out when I introduced you?
Well, thanks for an introduction. I'm not really sure because I'm waiting for the surprise.
Oh, the surprise in what you do?
No, you say we're going to surprise people.
Yes, that's right. You're right. So here is the surprise. Both of us have done a lot of leadership, been in a lot of leadership roles, and I will tell you that I am against this movement about leadership that is currently going on, where everyone is saying leadership, leadership, leadership. I am pretty tired of it. People are saying lead yourself, lead an organization. They talk about it like it's you're a leader or you're a loser. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think that not everybody needs to be a leader and that there needs to be a new discussion on this topic. So that's the surprise. Most people don't think that people are going to talk about leadership in that way.
So you're saying like whenever you hear these kind of leadership talks or leadership seminars, it's always like everyone can be a leader. Everyone should be a leader. And it's kind of starts there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I have a mentee, as a matter of fact, who just came to me. This was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
Hmm.
He came to me and he said, I want to get leadership skills to students in elementary school. And I said, okay, tell me about that. And he said, everyone should learn how to be a leader. And I said, okay, so if everyone is a leader, who's following? Who's out there that's gonna do the work? How's that gonna work if you have a class of 30 kids and they're all leaders, how is that gonna work? Who's leading whom? And he was stumped. He said, I hadn't thought about it that way. So I think that when people think about leadership, they're thinking about some of the skills that make you a good communicator, or that make you, someone who can work well with others. But that's not just leadership. That's being a good, fellow citizen, community member, colleague. That's a whole host of other things. So I think that we really place in people's minds that if you're not a leader, you're a loser, and that to me is a problem. What are your thoughts, Bruce?
Well, it reminds me, I remember that thing Clubhouse.
Ew, during COVID, Clubhouse.
That was a few years ago, and I remember I was joined. Someone asked me to join this. I don't know. I don't remember what you call them, rooms or something. I guess there were rooms before,
Yeah,
and it was about uh, alpha, right? Being alpha, and you basically had. I mean, there weren't real stages in the clubhouse, but there was a virtual stage, and so you had a panel that got up there, and they were talking about how betas suck and alphas are great, and how that people just don't understand alphas and they don't appreciate alphas. That was basically the whole conversation, and everyone's sort of like doing this to each other and trying to like get in airtime and things like that. So um, I thought that was an interesting conversation because the whole attitude was like, okay, you're either alpha or you kind of suck.
yeah,
So yeah. So that might be kind of connected to what you're saying, that there is this glorification of quote unquote being a leader, um, when it's not the be all the end all, right? It's not like, okay, you're either a leader or nothing, I think you mentioned, or a loser, or what have you. And so then the question is like, well, if someone's not designed, or that's not what they want to do, or what have you, what are they supposed to do? Are they looked at down upon? I know a ton of people that are really talented folks, can do a whole lot of things, but they are not interested in leading organizations or people or those things like that. But they're great people. So, um, so yeah, I think there's this. I do agree with what you're saying.
I feel like, the more I hear about leadership and the way that it's presented as though we all live in a corporate lifestyle, and the world doesn't work like that. When you and I were both part of the Mentor Project, and if you look at mentoring and how people interact, a mentor is somebody who gives something to someone, right? Their expertise, their values, a tradition, whatever that may be, but they're not leading them. They're
Mhm.
they're mentoring them, right?
Yep.
Um, and I think that a lot of our life works that way too. And the way we interact as colleagues works that way too. Sometimes somebody's helping you with something, you're helping somebody else with something, and people will try to label that interaction as leading, and that you need to take the lead in those cases, when in most cases in our lives, we're just looking to be collaborative, collegial, to be friends, to be able to work out in a way that you would have in a team. If you have a team, a baseball team, and everyone is the leader, that's gonna be hard. You're gonna have people just looking to make home run hits and be the star, and you're not gonna get the person who's gonna bat a runner in or something like that, or take a position to just get on base. The same with any other kind of team sport. I think that that is really how we operate, is more like we see teams operating, teams that do really well. I don't
Mhm.
know what you think. I know that you have worked a lot with sports. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a football team, for instance. Not everyone should be the quarterback, uh,
Yeah.
right? If you had a team with nothing but quarterbacks, they would probably lose.
Yeah.
They'd all be throwing the ball away because no one would catch the ball, no one would run with the ball, no one would block, no one would play defense, no one would kick the ball. You just basically people have a bunch of people, they all throw the ball and then that's it. So so instead, yeah, on a football team you have like different people having different roles, and they're roles, not roles. They all have the same roles.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have different roles. And so that's how the best teams work. And then, there's going to be some people that naturally may do a little more in different things or be a little more vocal, but many times that naturally emerges, as opposed to everyone saying that I want to be I want to have the ball all the time, and just control what's going on. I think another analogy is what, like a TV show or like a movie, or a uh, Broadway show or something of that sort.
Absolutely. It's funny that you brought up football, because I was watching a Syracuse game,
Hmm.
and, I was watching the football game, and the quarterback got hurt. So they worked without a quarterback. They were just passing it along, and this guy, LaQuint Allen, took the ball and he would just plow through over and over and over again. He was able to just get through. He was not the quarterback, but people step in all the time and they pivot and they make changes. And so leadership, yes, it's very important. And being a leader is important. I'm not saying don't have leaders, but with if we forget the importance of everybody else who's holding on, um, to just the thought that the leader carries everything, then there's a problem there. We have a question here. Somebody's saying, debating if everyone needs to be a leader. Yeah, so we are saying or at least I am, that I don't think everybody needs to be a leader. There are so many times, Bruce, that I wanna sit back and have somebody else lead, especially if I'm not an expert in something.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you're a leader of something, you don't people don't really see, uh, the unglamorous stuff, the stuff that you actually have to do, um, from a day-to-day basis
Yeah.
that, is not many people would find not fun and not attractive
Yeah.
or what have you. I think that there tends to be this portrayal that, oh, okay, a leader is someone who gets up and makes speeches, um, you know, looks the part or whatever that it means, and then just gives orders to everyone. I've seen this many times where people think, oh, being a leader is just giving orders to everyone or making big pronouncements on like social media or what have you. But a lot of it is just, you have to take the you have to have the final responsibility for everything. And, you can't go home until something's done because, the quote unquote buck stops there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff and garbage that you actually have to deal with. So some people like that. Like some people really like to deal with all that kind of stuff. And great, then maybe it's right for them. But it's not right for many people because I think the trouble is people see the glamorous stuff, right? They see the title and they see the whatever. They say, "Oh, I lead such and such, so and so, and all this kind of stuff." And here's my LinkedIn profile. Here's my
Mm.
badge, and I can say this on whatever TikTok that I'm a such and such leader, and look at me. But that only lasts a very short amount of time. That's only a very small percentage of what leading is. A lot of it is, again, very unglamorous. Not, uh, yeah, but it's been glorified.
I think you're right. And, the thing that I also think that people, when they talk about leadership, it sounds like all the impact comes from the leader. That if
Yeah,
there's impact made, it's because of the leader. And I've been working with impact for a while now, and it's not that that's not the case. If you have 300 people working under you, and each one of those people is making impact, and you're one leader, you're making, your one bit of impact, but they may be making mountains more than you are. However, it gets placed back on the leader in many cases. And I think that that's so important for us to really find a way to allow people to tap into the kind of impact that they're making so that it doesn't feel like it has to be attached to a title.
yeah. I mean, again, if you look at the best sports teams in history, they all had, most of them had it all, right? They basically had top players in many different positions. Um, there might have been stars, but you talk to the stars of these teams, um, for the most part, they will give credit to the rest of their teammates. They realize, and they're not just being like nice people doing that. They realize, first of all, if they don't do that, then like their teammates might beat them up. But but beyond that, they realize, okay, yeah, this is where it comes from. These are the folks that are blocking for me. These, on the soccer field, these are people who are passing to me.
Mhm.
These are the folks that on the baseball field. These are people playing all the different positions, or setting up, getting on base so that, you can hit the grand slam or what have you, or, it can go through every single sport. But, uh, yeah, so they recognize that. But, it's weird. Sometimes in some organizations, you just hear about the leader,
Yeah.
and many times they don't give credit to the other folks within the organization. That's that's messed up because if organization is a good organization, is actually producing stuff, then there's so many people in it that are contributing and doing great stuff. But yeah, there are organizations where the leader is like hogging all the credit. Yeah,
Yeah. I think that you're right about that. And I think that a lot of times people that they may not even know they're hogging it because they don't know the impact that others are making or to think that others are making impact. Because when you say everyone should be a leader and you don't have any room for anybody else, that's why I keep saying leader or loser. Like, who are you if you're not the leader? What's your identity? Where do you hold any value for yourself or for others? And that's really something that I find i- is very bothersome for me. I have a hard time with that because so many of the most amazing people I know are the people who have quietly made change. I see like Jessica Breutman on here. She quietly makes change in politics and in other things that make the world a better place. And those are the kinds of people that you might not hear that title leader with, but they really are and making impact that's bigger than many leaders anywhere.
Well, it's weird because if you look at many fields, you don't start off the fields doing that. So we mentioned sports, right? And if you start playing a sport, most people, there are a few people, but like this, but most people won't say, when they're starting out playing sport, oh, what would you like to do in the sport? I would like to be the MVP of the NFL, or I would like to be the best player ever in the NBA, et cetera. There are a few people who say they do that, but for the most part, people are doing it because they actually enjoy playing the sport, right? And they want to have fun and those things like that. Or like you do with an artist or a musician. Many times, there's a lot of musicians that become famous, and that wasn't their intention. They'll tell you that they actually loved making music, and then things just happened in a certain way, right? And so you don't start off doing all those different types of things. Same thing with a scientist. Many times scientists they just enjoy what they're doing. And then over time, they may become successful at what they're doing. I mean, they get better and better at what they're doing. And, they may become whatever, but they don't start off doing that. But it's kind of weird because leadership is different, right? It's like you're starting off, you're putting the cart before the horse. Um, I'm wondering how long that analogy will last because you don't see many carts and horses these days. But anyhow,
That's funny.
yeah, it's like putting the front bumper or the back bumper in front of the Uber. Well, actually, that doesn't quite work. But anyway, the point is like there's so many other areas where you don't start like that. You don't start with, oh, let's look down the road, et cetera. Yeah, leadership is different. Like everyone's saying, oh, you can all be. It's like telling everyone you can all be NBA players or
Yeah.
whatever. Doesn't make any sense.
No, that's a good analogy because if we're saying to everyone who's going to play a sport when you're a kid, I want to get every kid to be the pitcher for baseball or the quarterback for football, when they're in elementary school, it makes you feel like any of the other, positions aren't valuable. And that's really the exact same thing that happens in the workplace and it happens in communities and it happens in even in friend groups, people can think I need to be the leader of this or I need to take charge. Someone has to be the one that leads the group. Um, and that makes, I hate to use the word follower because you also aren't always a follower. Maybe you're at work and you're doing your job and you are accomplishing what you set out to accomplish. Maybe you're doing something in the community or in another area, and you're not being a follower. You're not being a follower on the baseball field or on the football field. You're playing your position. And that those words, I think, are going to have a negative long-term effect on the way that people think. Because if you can only be a winner or a loser, a leader or a loser, a person in charge, or you're a nobody, there's a big gap. What's all that stuff in between? And that I think is dangerous.
It reminds me. So when I was in business school, we used to have these group projects. This doesn't happen all the time, but one of the courses early on my uh, business school time, we had this group project, and you form. I can't remember if they were assigned or whatever, but you form these groups, And I remember there's this group of, well, we had a group of maybe 6, 7, or 8 people or so. Um, and almost everyone, except for 2 of us, wanted to be the group leader, right? So they all were like kind of arguing who's the group leader, etc. And it was viewed as the group leader would give the orders and then the other people would actually do the project.
That's funny.
So I remember sitting there, I and this other guy, and I was sort of a I guess non-traditional business school student because I had been in other fields. I hadn't come up with standard sort of management consultant or working in a corporation or investment banking type of pathway. And then this other guy wasn't either. Um, and so, uh, but we were just sitting there listening the rest argue over who should be the group leader. And it turns out that no one was doing the work for the project. So I and this other person end up doing like all the work for it.
Wow.
Because at some point we were like, we have to get this done. It has to
Yeah.
be finished. And then so it really actually, we had a group of 8 people, but it actually all the work fell onto 2 people. And I found that kind of interesting because just everyone wanted to be the person bossing other people around. That's not leadership. I mean,
No.
you actually have to know how to do the work or do the work. So that was an interesting
Yeah.
that was an interesting experience. I think the class was a management class. So
Oh, that's really funny. That's a very funny. So, was there an official leader in the end? Did somebody say, "Hey, I'm the leader," or was someone named as the leader, even though they really weren't
I
ladies?
can't remember, but it felt like there were 6 leaders and then 2 of us who actually did the presentation.
Oh,
So
that's funny.
yes.
That's so typical of so many things.
So I felt like I had 6 bosses during that project.
Oh, I that's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give an example of just tonight. I live in a community, and we have a group community park, and it has a pool. And I always call myself the Robin to the Batman of the woman who is the leader. And I would never want the leadership position. I think she does a great job, but I'll do all the work that's needed. I'll go behind the scenes and do everything that's needed that she needs to have done. But that is because I want to see a change happen in the community and have really nice things happen. And in some cases, you may be in a position in your life where you're someplace and you are a leader, in another area you're not. And it may be that you are holding different hats in all kinds of areas in your life. And, it's important to feel like you have that option. Like you don't have to be in the position of leader for everything. And that being number two, being the Robin to somebody, or even farther back, whatever the title might be, that gets things done, makes things happen, makes your community what you want it to be, makes your workplace the fun place you might want it to be, or you know, m- making a sports team manage or work. Um,
So it's funny because you're the exact opposite. Now we have this joke with Debbie. She doesn't go into organizations or situations wanting to be the leader. Like she wants to go and help out because she's interested in a cause or interested in what an organization should do. But there are so many times that over time Debbie ends up being the leader. And I can tell you it's not by intent. It's not her intent to go in and say, I'm gonna lead this. But because you are the one who many times ends up doing a lot of this stuff, like you said, being the Robin or even I can't. It's been a while since I read comics, so I don't know who else is in the Batman family, but being one of those other folks,
I've
Alfred.
been Alfred too.
Alfred's a butler. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I've been Alfred also.
Covers for Batman and Robin, and he's a butler. So he's always
Could Batman do what he needs to do without Alfred? No, he couldn't.
exactly, and who's gonna do all that stuff with the Batcave? You always see the Batcave. Like who's maintaining the Batcave? That's a big
I
question.
Yeah,
You've
we
got
need
the Batcave. Like who's doing the vac? You never see either. Batman doesn't do the vacuuming. Robin, I don't see him doing the vacuuming or the cleaning, and they've got all those like and electricity. Like, what happens if they need something fixed
Yeah.
there? They can't call the electrician, right? Because they're like, oh, where do we come? Oh, just come to the back gate, because then you give away. So these are inconsistencies that I think about every day. But anyway, I digress. Um, but you invariably many times will go in and you just want to help out, and then I think you naturally become the leader because you are doing all these different things. That's really how leaders should emerge organically, because and I think this goes to your point um, where like you actually have to learn how to be a follower first. I mean, there's all these quotes
Yeah.
about you have to learn how to be a follower, et cetera, and then you may choose at some point to become a leader. It doesn't rule out, like, if you take a follower's mentality, it definitely doesn't rule out becoming a leader. Uh, Case in point, Exhibit A or Exhibit D, Debbie. But there's too many situations now that where I see people saying they just want to be a leader, but they don't want to learn all that stuff that other people have to do. And then, like, I don't understand how you can lead. It'd be the equivalent of saying that, yeah, I want to be the star on the football thing. We're going back to football, but I don't want to learn the football stuff.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to learn the football stuff or the doing the laps or running stuff like that. I just want to be the leader of the team. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Um, so yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that, and I know in a genuine way that you don't go in wanting to immediately want to lead things, but you end up being the leader because you actually have that followers mentality, which I think is important.
You know, I think most of the time I go in there and end up the leader because nobody else wants to do it.
Hmm.
And that's what they don't talk about. They don't talk about most people don't want to lead.
Yeah, they
You
don't.
know, being the leader means like, oh, you have to be accountable for everything and everybody's asking a question. Most people don't want any of that. It's drama in
Yeah.
many cases. And so that's how I end up doing it. It isn't because I come in there and there's some kind of magic. It's because it's like by default, I'm the only one that's like, all right, I'll do it, you know? Um, and that's what I see with other people who step into that as well, that there's just nobody else wants to do it. Um, but yeah, it's important to actually, go through understanding how you follow everybody first. How has it been working? What's you need the lay of the land to understand that. And I have to say that a lot of the best leaders that I've ever met, and one of the best leaders was one of my first bosses. And I was a teacher's assistant in a school with kids with special needs. And I didn't know what I was doing. And she was such a good leader. She was so amazing. She gave me so many tips about how I could navigate the room. Like, you have to find something in every child that you can grab onto, that you love about that kid, that you can connect with, so that you can find how you can help them. She's the first person that ever made me think about another person in that way. And then I was able to do my job really much better because of her. That's something that people don't talk about, is the when you're talking about a leader, that person has to hold a passion for what they're doing. And it's not always somebody that can just step into something and take it over. They have to have a deeper understanding and understand that lay of the land and be able to communicate that to somebody. So she might have had that skill for herself, but she communicated it to me in a way that she would say, "Now look at what do you see in this child here? Tell me what it is that you think is amazing. What's their superpower? How can you connect with?" And she did that child after child until I understood how to do it on my own. That's a leader.
Hmm.
And people don't talk about leaders in that way oftentimes. They just talk about, well, yes, she ordered me to do things and I did them, but she made me empowered, and learn a little bit more about myself and the job. And th- I never wanted to take a leadership position in there. I was happy to follow her. I
Hmm.
w- I followed her for years because I got something from her as a leader, and I never felt diminished by being a follower, by being somebody who's doing my job or doing something that was helping that classroom or those children. And the people who are the followers are usually never talked about.
Mhm. Yeah. I think follower is not a great,
Not a great word.
because it's not really like, there aren't too many situations, except maybe when you're crossing the street where there's, like, a clear person walking across and, like, everyone's following that person. Ducks, there might be a duck and there's ducks following them, but that's not how things work, right?
Right.
It's not like everyone, in an organization or I don't know, a play or a team or a project is all just kind of looking at one person and they just do everything that person said. They just wait for orders from that person and
Yeah.
then they do it. That actually would be a horrible organization, right? Because it would never work because uh as a leader, you wouldn't want that, right? You would want people to be more proactive. You want you know, engagement and everyone kind of working together. It'd be the equivalent of we'll go back to sports. It'd be equivalent about like, okay, you're dribbling up the ball and everyone's just sort of standing there. And then like every play you have to say, hey, you go over there, you go over there, you go over there. I'm going to throw you the ball, then you throw it back to me. And meanwhile, the like opponent's just like, okay, we know exactly what you're going to do. So that doesn't make sense. So the word follower is not a
No.
good word. No,
What would you think it would be a good term for there's leaders and then who? Then what are
that's an interesting question. I'll have to think about that.
That's
Yeah,
where I have a problem with leadership because there isn't another word. There's the leader and then et al.
yeah,
You're thinking in science in terms of science writing.
yeah,
Then there's all of the others. And
yeah.
who are they? They're nameless, faceless individuals that we don't give credit to, that we don't, you know, we don't assign any impact to individuals unless it's a leader. And so I want to talk about the silent individuals who are making the world go round because um, if you have a class of 30 people and one person in charge, you know that those 30 people are making 30 people's worth of impact. That's a lot.
Hmm.
And um, I think that we need to start talking about everybody in that way. Like, what kind of impact do people make? How can we capitalize on the impact that everybody's making? And it doesn't all have to be funneled through the leader at all times.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. I remember one time I was thinking, remember like those groups like Prince and the Revolution and Bruce Hornsby and the Range? These are like different groups. I was thinking, what happens if all those things like the Revolution and the Range all got together and had a concert without
Yeah.
doing? But that's an aside. But it looks like someone's saying team players
Yeah.
as an example,
Kaya had a good one. Good one, Kaya. I like that.
or teammates, right? I mean,
Right.
other folks are teammates, right?
I think that's a good point, Kaya, because teams understand that. You know, if you are a pitcher and, you have the team players, if you're a pitcher and nobody's catching the ball, if somebody hits a pop up fly and you don't have anybody backing you up, what good is anything? But imagine if somebody hits the ball and somebody makes a diving wild catch. They just made that save, for the team or anything else that's out there. So yeah, I love that. Team players. That is a way to talk about it. I think that you're the sports expert, Bruce. How do you think about it in terms of the impact that team players make and how you could parse that out?
I was actually also thinking about like different fields. I'm not a musician, but if you look at musical groups, uh, they don't talk about necessary leaders and followers when they talk about it. They talk about front people or lead singer maybe or something of that sort. But everyone has an identity in the band.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, well, of course, there's some. bands that don't quite work out. So they can be a bit, things can be messed up internally, and that's when it doesn't work out. You can tell, like, you have these feuds within bands, and that's how they break up. But when a band works, you don't tend to have someone saying that, okay, here are my followers. I'm the leader. So yeah, so I would say, certainly in sports, it's more of this kind of complex machine where everyone's all working together. Same thing with music. Uh, Same thing with so many other things. So why is it different when it comes to organizations? That doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah, I'm curious about that as well.
Yeah.
Um, I it's kinda like a chef that's putting together a meal, and if you're making brownies and you're missing sugar, it's not gonna taste like brownies.
Yeah.
Like, you need all the ingredients.
Or like the Avengers. Who are the followers in the Avengers?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I guess if you had to pick a leader in the Avengers, I guess that was sort of Captain America. He seemed to, like, give all the speeches. Um, so maybe he was the leader of the Avengers. But, like, you wouldn't call the other folks like Ant-Man, a follower, right?
Yeah,
Or, Hulk a follower. They never said that with them. But if Captain America said something, let's all do this, they would listen. Sometimes they would disagree. Or Thor was not a follower, or Black Widow, etc. Um, I could try to name all the Avengers right now, but yeah, you don't have it with them, and they seem to work out as a team fictionally.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, you and I were talking about this the other day, and
Mm.
it's something that's still new in my mind, talking about leadership in a new way. I can't tell you how many times I run across what writing, or in the field of psychology, and coaching especially, I'll hear about people talking about leadership, and everyone's jumping on the leadership bandwagon. It seems to me, maybe it's just because I'm immersed in hearing this and seeing this, but I really wanna change the discussion that we have about leadership to, allow us to have dialogue. What are we gonna call people? Like Kaya says, "Hey, team players." Is it the orchestra? Is it, a follower? Is it who are we talking about? They're really the impact makers. It's our community, but we need a term for this because otherwise everybody that I talk to truly does feel like, well, I have to go find out how I can be a leader. A leader of what? Like, what are you going to lead? You want to just be a leader? It's because they feel like they're a loser if they're not a leader in some way. And we have another thing Kai is saying. Teammate is nice, actually. You're right about that. It de emphasizes hierarchy. I like that. You're right about that. Like bandmates in a band. Yeah, you're totally right, Kaya. Do you think that we should use teammates, and this is a question for Kaya, in workplaces, in communities, and other places? Do you think that's a term that we should just be using everywhere? I put this out to Kaya, but she has to type. So, and what? Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to change the terminology and dialogue. I There was a uh give an example of someone that I knew who really wanted to lead an organization, right?
Hmm.
Oh, that's one of his goals, to lead this such and such organization. And I was like, why? And he just said he just wanted to lead it. And I said, well, if you lead the organization, what's your vision of it? And he didn't have a vision. He just basically wanted to lead the organization. Um, and it was so important to for him to do that. And he many times would use I did this, I did this of we, the term we. I kept on saying, oh, you should use we because you're not the only person doing something, etc.
Yeah.
And so it was a situation where I think he just had the impression that, he wanted to be viewed as a leader, and that, like, anything else wasn't good. But ultimately, I don't think things worked out. And with that, because it just wasn't just wasn't designed
Yeah.
that way, which is there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that because I think once, like you said, once you actually reach a position where you're responsible for something, like you're responsible for it. In other words, everyone else can go home when
Yeah.
something's done. Or like if someone messes up with something, buck stops there. You have to take care of it. It's not glamorous. It's not glamorous at all. So but I know a number of people who just want to go home because and that's there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I think people are more interested in just externally how it's viewed as opposed to what the actual job description is.
I think you're right. And people get that thought, like you're saying, that sometimes people don't want it. They just think they need that title because, you want to feel like you're worth something, like you have some value, right? But
Yeah.
we have different motivation styles. And David McClellan did a whole lot of research on motivation styles. He was a psychologist and he did work that where he looked at motivation styles and he also looked at how this worked in, the workplace and how people led and things like that. But there are 3 different styles that he talked about. One is power oriented, and of course, if you're power oriented, you probably wanna be a leader. There's affiliative motivation, and that's where you are really into being, talking with others and being engaged with others. And then there's achievement motivation, and achievement motivation is where you're really looking to see, "Did I do better than I did before?"
Hmm.
Now, if you're high in achievement motivation, you may not wanna be a leader. You might be, happy with, like, comparing yourself to how you did before. That's gonna give you fulfillment.
Hmm.
Um, if you are high in power motivation, you're gonna want that, but we assume that everybody is high in power motivation when we assume that everybody wants to be a leader. Whereas if I am high in achievement motivation, I'm gonna be saying to myself, "I'm gonna try to do better than I did before. I am you know, working with myself here. If I'm high in affiliation motivation, I'm looking to, I'm going to be out there looking to meet people, talk to people. Maybe I don't want to be a leader. Maybe I want to be engaged with others. Maybe I'm a community mobilizer. Maybe I'm somebody who's doing something like that. I mean, you could be high in all 3. That would be, like the Dalai Lama or somebody, but that's what we need to look at is that everybody has a different style, and if we make a person feel less than because they are not fitting into the certain style or title that is out there, and that they always have to look to achieve, like you were talking about your colleague, that you had who felt like he wanted that title, but he didn't want it really. Um, I think that we're lacking good words to talk about the good impact that people make because, we're all making impact wherever we are, and it's just not getting labeled at all.
So when you say affiliation motivation, maybe could you expand on that? Like what is the specific motivation there when you say affiliation?
I would say if you can picture like Bill Clinton. Bill
Yeah.
Clinton was able to go out and talk to people, and he was really high in affiliation. I can feel your pain. And he was somebody who was able to really communicate with others, and he needed to be around others. So I'm just giving
Okay.
him an example, but we all know people like that who need and want to be around others. So if you can imagine someone high in affiliation, you don't want them being by themselves. That's not somebody that you wanna put in a back room, doing something without other people around. So, that's really what I mean by affiliation motivation. They need
Interactions and connections and those things.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
they need to be around people.
Okay. And then power is they just basically want to have maybe man, when people want power, what do they want?
So that isn't diabolical. A lot of people think that power, I'm going to rule over others.
Yeah.
But high end power motivation can be that you really want to feel like you can take something and make something change, that you have the ability to make change with things. You'd be a good negotiator, you'd be somebody who would be able to, you would want to be in a leadership position in many cases because you are able to have the power that you're looking for to make change, to do something that matters. So, if I were to say the Dalai Lama, most people don't think of the Dalai Lama as diabolical in any way, but he'd be high in all 3. maybe achievement, affiliation, and power. And so these are all things that are good and work for us, but everybody has a different, level for each of those areas, achievement, affiliation.
And then the achievement means you wanna accomplish something, finish
Yeah.
something? Mhm,
So that would be like if I wanted to do, if somebody loves crossword puzzles, if you love solving problems, if you're somebody who, when you do something, maybe you walk and you want to see if you walked more the next time, or you did a certain level of work and then you want to see if you can do even more than that next time. You want to learn something and see if you can expand on that. That is you comparing yourself to you, and you're always trying to do better than you did before.
mhm. What if I'm motivated by sushi? Where would that fall?
Oh, that would be totally all 3,
Okay.
because you'd be eating out probably with others. You'd be
Mhm.
seeing if you could eat more sushi than you could before, and you'd have power over the menu.
Okay, but what if you're happy eating sushi in a corner?
Then you'd be, uh,
Be too
low
happy.
low in affiliation, motivation. So,
It's helpful. So, yeah, so different people are motivated by different things.
yeah.
That's something important because there can be a belief that everyone's motivated by the same thing.
Yes, and that most people want what would be considered power. And
Mhm,
there are more people that don't want power than want power in general. And so we need to make sure that people understand that not wanting to be in a position of power or leadership does not mean that you are not making impact, that you do not hold any power,
mhm,
or that you um are a loser in some way, that you're not somebody of importance.
mhm. That makes sense.
I don't know.
That's
You and I were talking a little bit about that, and I just kept saying, "My goodness, I feel like I'm on a soapbox with this. I'm the only person that's thinking like this." But you were having some similar thoughts as well, because you've been leading in so many different areas, for so many decades. You've been seeing leadership in so many different capacities. Is there anything that you think could make a difference?
well, I think that it's, ultimately happiness. Everyone's seeking happiness in life, right?
Mhm,
And I'm a strong believer that, happiness comes from finding your fits in life, finding your matches in life, and, like, in almost everything, right? Basically, finding the right fit socially, finding the right friends, people you resonate with, people you enjoy spending time with, and those things like that. Finding the right partner. Obviously, seen many people being very unhappy because they have a mismatch when it comes to a partner.
mhm,
And then finding the right fit when it comes to your job. And the right fit means what you're doing on a day to day basis fits your interests, it fits your personality, and it fits your strengths, right? So you don't want to be in a situation where you're constantly having to exercise your weaknesses. That's where like unhappiness comes. That's where people are miserable. I've seen so many people miserable in their jobs or miserable in their professions because they are actually doing something on a day-to-day basis that does not fit who they actually are. And why does that happen? I've seen it happen so many times. It's because people are pursuing external validation, right? They're pursuing something that they think other people will be impressed by. They think other people will want this or will honor or worship them because of this. So they just keep on keeping on. I
mhm,
can't tell you the number of people that I've talked to that are, they have fancy titles, you know, president of such and such, or chair of such and such, or, all these like fancy titles. And then they will confide and they just say they hate what they're doing. They're like, it's not like they're meh about it, meh as an MEH. but they actually literally hate what they're doing,
Yeah.
right? They will complain. You know, I have a situation where people with these fancy titles will just sit there and just complain and complain, complain, and then I'll just say, "Well, why do you keep doing this?
Yeah.
Why don't you do something different?" And then they'll be like, "Can't do that." Right, because a lot of their, um, self-worth, is kinda tied up in this title and being viewed as a leader, quote, unquote. But it really is, I think, the road to unhappiness. So what instead you should do is you should say on a day-to-day basis, "What do I actually enjoy doing?" Right? And if it's all that stuff that is associated with being, having some kind of title, great. You found your match. That works very well. If it isn't, then it's not right. And ultimately, no one's really going to care. You know, there are all these quotes about how people like, and people will say this on TikTok and other social media platforms that you think other people care about you more than they really actually do. Right?
True. That's
They
so
are sitting there thinking, "Ooh, that person is the, uh, senior, big wig, something big wigginess. Oh my goodness," and they're like, "Oh, that's great," and they aren't thinking about you day by they're thinking about their own problems, right? Their own
yeah.
situation, their own etcetera. So who are you trying to press?
Yeah.
And if you're sitting there and you're, like, miserable, then what are you doing? So I think if you look at it that way, that runs counter to this whole mantra where, oh, everyone should be a leader and blah, 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 etc. Whereas I think it's instead it's organic. Like
Yeah.
you follow your interests and you follow what you're actually good at and those things like that. And if that means such and such, then it means such and such. And you should be happy with that.
Yeah, that's so important. I love that you brought that up that, so many people are miserable in their jobs because they're going after a title. They're going after something that other people they believe that other people care about and really people don't. And
Yeah.
I see that in retirement because I'm an aging specialist, so I work with people, through the lifespan, midlife and older. And in retirement, those who followed check boxes that they thought other people would be, attributing things to them like titles that they thought were important can be very troubling for people in transition outside of that because their business card goes away, which I call the identity card.
Mhm.
Their identity's gone then. Now
Mhm.
what's their title?
Yeah.
You're not, "Oh, I was the chief lawyer. I was, the" whatever the title was that a person holds dear to them.
Mhm.
Who are you then? It can be a really troubling time for people when they have that title that holds something that they believe others hold to be really significant for them, um, in high regard.
Mhm.
Because A, like you said, most people don't really care. They're like, "Do I like this person or not?
Yeah.
Are they qualified and competent? Are they somebody who'll have my back? Are they somebody who I think is going to, be there for me when I need them?" Those are the things people care about.
Mhm.
They don't really care about a title, but that's what I've seen as in transition. That is really hard for a lot of people, and that's because they chased the leadership title, and when they got it, they did not wanna give it up because they thought, "People will only have respect for me if I have a title.
Yeah.
They'll only think that I'm important if I have a title," and then they adjust and they find out that's actually not the case, that people like them for them, that they have a different title, and it might be something that doesn't hold any power in their mind that they would have thought it had, but they're happier.
I wrote about this once, that, I think it was in a Psychology Today article, but, I remember, when I worked in the corporate world, and there was this guy, that I knew, and he had some kind of title or something, and he told me that one of his career goals is to someday have a job where he can be himself.
Oh. Oh,
Yeah.
that just hurts my heart to hear that. you know?
So, yeah, he was a nice guy, good guy, etcetera, and, but yeah, I that stuck with me because I thinking that should not be a goal. That should not be a goal down the road. And then many times, I also know other people who like they view like retirement as a time that they can actually do what they want to do, and they spend all this time not doing what they don't want to do.
Right.
You have to start now, right? Because and I think this leadership trap contributes to that.
Yeah, I
Right?
think
Because people think that, yeah, I've gotta hold on to this title or whatever, or I've gotta keep climbing the leadership ladder or what have you, and then but again, they're doing stuff they don't wanna do.
right.
So,
Yeah. I think that you're right about that. There are so many people who are doing jobs that they think will please their parent, that will please their spouse, that will please their friends, that will please somebody else in their life.
yes.
They're miserable, but they do it year after year over and over and over again. And the hope that they have is that retirement will be reprieve for them. But
Mhm.
I will tell you that when those folks who've been operating on external validation get to the transition period to retirement, it's often hard for them because they're then still seeking external validation. They don't know how to get it internally. That's a tough transition for some. It's very doable, it can happen, but that's something they have to kind of learn how it's a muscle they have to learn how to use again.
Yeah. I think people should look at the people around them like they would their dog. So,
Oh,
like, y okay, so say, like, you come home and your dog comes up to you and you say, "Well, I'm the chief muckety muck of such and such." Your dog would be like, I don't really care. Did you bring some food?"
yeah,
Right? Or, you've gotta walk me or I'm gonna pee on the carpet. Or, let's go play, or etcetera. That's what your dog cares about.
yeah,
And I think that's the same with other people. They are actually more interested in like, "Oh, okay, do I actually like to spend time around you?" Or, how do we help each other? And those things like that. So yeah, when you're wondering what people think about you, think about your dog. And if you don't have a dog, pretend you have a dog.
yeah. I think you're right. You know, that just made me think of, and I don't know where the association was with this, but it
Mhm.
made me think back to, I used to work with little kids, and I was working with little kids in I guess they were preschool age. And I did a study on help-seeking behaviors, and the interesting thing was if you look at little kids, they are very helpful with others, and they're very much into you don't see leadership emerge in the same way that you would see it in other places. Like, little kids are comfortable with being who they are. The ones
Yeah.
that wanna play with by themselves, go play with by themselves, and they don't feel bad about it. The kids that are super social are running around doing things, and then you see the leaders who are out there helping every other kid, whether they wanted that help or not, in some cases. And
So
I don't
you're saying that kids are pretty cool until adults start messing them up.
exactly. I don't think they need leadership skills in pre-K, and I just think we should learn from them how they get along and they do things because, kids are comfortable with who they are. If you're seeing a kid playing but with blocks by him or herself and they're really enjoying themselves, good.
Mhm.
And if you see another kid who's, saying, "Hey, I wanna form a little group of people doing things," great.
Mhm.
But allowing people to feel like they are good for being who they are. I think that that's something that we should do rather than, go in and try to change a whole bunch of little kids and make them all into leaders. Leaders of what?
Oh, I remember, I was, this was a little while ago, where uh, someone wanted me to talk to, I think one of her family members, it was another relative or something like that. And that kid, I don't know how old she was. She basically like told me what she wanted to be. when she grew up. I can't remember how old she was, but like she was like saying like, and she had like all these kind of fancy titles that she wanted to be. I, I'm not convinced she actually understood what those things are, and so I have a feeling that her parents probably told her
Oh, yeah.
that's what you should be doing. And I was just saying maybe this summer instead of like joining some kind of program to do that, maybe, just enjoy the summer or have fun or go, go to a camp or something like this. So I think, yeah, I think, where again, uh, kids can have the right ideas until like
Yeah.
of interfere.
I can't tell you how many kids I've asked, "What do you wanna be when you grow up?"
Yeah.
Because that's something that you ask lots of little kids, and some little kids will be like, "I wanna be a race car." Not the
Yeah.
driver, they wanna be the car.
Yeah.
My son actually, when I don't know how old he was like 5 or something, he wrote a book,
Yeah.
and it was because I was asking, "What do you wanna be when you grow up?" And he said, "I wanna grow up and live in the jungle."
Okay.
And so I would ask him questions like, "Well, what are you gonna do for food?" "Well, you'll bring me meatballs." And, this whole storyline of how essentially his life was gonna be carefree and fun, and he incorporated his brother into it, and grandma came to visit, and, you
Hmm.
know, he'd get to stay up all night. And I think that we remove some of that early on with kids when we say, "Wait, you gotta be a leader." In that case, who was he leading? It was just him. It was his own little storyline about life. And, leadership doesn't come into play there. I think that, we can have life and live life and make impact and have relationships and do all kinds of things without the word leadership in it.
Yeah. Did you explain to him the supply chain challenges of getting meatballs to him if he were in the jungle?
I did not, and, his main concern, I will tell you, ended up not being food,
Hmm.
but that he got to stay up all night.
Okay.
That was his big thing, so
In the
he
specific.
didn't care if he was gonna starve in the end.
Okay. Okay. The jungle may not be the best place to stay up all night, but yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, that's true.
Yeah.
But, little kids, I can't I spoke with so many little kids, and they have these wild, elaborate stories about what they wanna be when they grow up, and it's fascinating because most of them don't have that they're gonna be leading others. It's really that they're finding the joy, the things that make them excited about life, and you can tell in that moment, what is it that they wanna do? Most cases, they wanna play, or they want to explore and see new things, or, but still have the comforts of home, that makes them feel safe there, and that often doesn't leave us as we get older. We still want that. We often return to that late in life. If you were talk to people at the very end of life, they don't care about their titles.
Yeah.
They don't care about what they had. They care about, did I make impact? Did I have good relationships? Did I have friends and family that I care about? And that's you could kinda go all the way back to, when you're a little kid with that, and leadership isn't what people talk about at the end of life. I've talked with so many, and that's not part of it.
Well, that's isn't that's common. That's related to common career advice. So career counselors many times will tell people, like especially those who are like struggling with like they're already embedded in a certain career and they want to change careers. And one of the early questions that the career counselors will ask them or career advisors will ask them is, well, what did you want to be or do when you were a kid? Right?
Yeah,
Back to what you were doing when what did you naturally pick up? And then many times therein lies the clues of
yeah,
what they should actually be doing with their lives. Because again, it's before all this other stuff messes things up. Like before all this stuff, before society starts telling you, and again, adults are telling you what you should be doing with your life. And so, yeah, then they go off and say, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to become a such and such." Yeah, the same thing is true, and you don't see that many kids saying that. Yeah, I want to. I want to take a leadership course and then become a leader. No,
You're an AI expert. So tell me, where do you think leadership is going to be with AI? Well,
it's interesting. That's an interesting question. Meaning, what will leadership be like, or
yeah, tell me what do you think is the future? We talk about leadership. We're leading people doing jobs that might be taken over by AI.
Mhm.
I don't know. Like, tell me, what do you see there? I have my idea, but I want to hear yours because you're the expert.
Well, so if we look at the definition of AI, right? AI stands for artificial intelligence. In this case, AI can stand for other things in other fields, but it stands for artificial intelligence, and you're essentially developing different types of computer algorithms or models or what have you that are supposed to do what the human brain normally is needed to do. Right. So this can include like decision making, assessing things, evaluating things, all those different types. So it's a very broad term. So really, the goal with AI, which incorporates many different methods and approaches, is to represent or be a human brain in different areas. So if you think about it that way, it's almost like having a collaborator or someone that you can work with that will have limitations. Naturally, all people have limitations. AI certainly has a lot of limitations right now. The limitations will be some of these will be overcome, but it'll always have limitations. They'll never know everything. They'll always make mistakes and those things like that. So it's like inserting a computer version of people. That's why some of the jobs that are done by people right now, maybe taken over by AI. But I don't think people should worry so much in the sense that I think a lot of jobs will evolve, right? So, in other words, you may be doing something different. There be maybe new job descriptions and those things like that, working alongside AI, and also having to manage AI and do all those different types of things. So, I don't think this necessarily changes what we talk about when we talk about leaders or the F word, which is, and that should be replaced by something like, teammates and those
Teammates,
things like
yeah.
that.
Thank you, Kaya.
Yeah, so it will just kind of instead it will shift what people are doing on a day-to-day basis, but it doesn't necessarily change these kind of the need to have teams, the need to have different people work together. You
Yeah.
might throw in, machines there, you might throw in computers there, et cetera, but you're still working with a team. And so it'll be all the more important to um to understand that everyone will have a role. Again, it's I know some people sit there and say, "Oh, the machines will do everything, computers will do everything." No, they won't do everything. They will not. I think actually the presence of AI will help us in some ways ask questions that we should have been asking for years, like what is what does it mean to be inherently human?
Mhm.
What things are needed for humans to actually do? Um, are we needed to fill out a bunch of papers and forms? Probably not, right? But if you think about it, there's so many jobs that are like dominated by that.
Yeah, you're
Like
right.
if you're a doctor and you see patients, like how much of your time is actually spent seeing patients versus filling out forms and like, you know, charting and all that kind of stuff like that. I know many doctors who are miserable about that. They say they would rather see patients. That's what they really actually wanted to do, but they're spending all their time filling out all those forms. So AI can potentially liberate people from a lot of those things that they didn't deep down didn't want to do. So I think going back to the original point, I don't think it changes our discussion. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. It's
Do you
just
do you think it defines our roles in a way so that we have, like Kaya suggested, teammates or team players, that we have that we think of roles differently so that we actually think of roles, so that it isn't leader and then a vast, et al out there. Do you think that that changes it at all?
yeah, I mean, I think what it will do is it'll have people think about, as I mentioned, what is really needed, and there will be a lot of gaps. There'll be a lot of things where humans are needed to do different things, but maybe that wasn't highlighted before.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I'll go back to healthcare as an example. There are many healthcare organizations that are sort of trying to treat healthcare like an assembly line.
Mhm.
But what's not fully realized is what's really important to patients is that relationship with the healthcare professionals, with the doctors. That actually has a healing effect itself. And so, if the presence of AI makes you realize that okay, that's what's actually needed. Those are some of the gaps in the roles that are there. Then hopefully there'll be more filling those roles in the future.
Yeah.
So that's just an example of how it really can be. It can really help. In some ways, AI can help humans understand better what it means to be human and what you actually bring to the table.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, of course, there might be misuse of AI. And there probably will be, but I think that's one of the big benefits of AI. So again, I don't think it changes the today's conversation.
I'm glad you were able to talk about that because there's so much discussion about and fear about AI and what's gonna happen in the future with regard to work. But if you're saying, leadership and the roles that we have are essentially gonna stay the same, maybe the jobs will be tweaked a little, they'll look a little different, um, you know, we still have work to do. We still have work to do in terms of how we talk about leadership and how we talk about roles and the ways that we think of making impact and doing things, and is it what you want to do, and the way that you talked about that made sense to me because I've seen since AI has been coming around, and since a lot of missed time with patients, I've seen a huge uptick in concierge doctors because people want to spend more time with their physician,
Yeah.
and that has been a big new movement that has been happening all over the country. And so you're probably right. We're just going to see things a little bit differently, but it'll still be the same.
Well, I can tell you this much: if you want to be a leader for the title and those things like that, but you don't actually like what you're doing from a day to day standpoint, yes, you will be very susceptible to being replaced by AI. Right.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Tell me more.
Well, because you don't actually enjoy what you're doing, so you're not very good at it, right? So then, yeah, in theory, yes, a computer could be better than you at it, right?
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you don't actually like what you're doing, and I see this all the time. People are complaining about, they have a leadership position. They're complaining about what they have to do every day, and I'm like, well, okay, you obviously don't like it, so therefore you're not very good at it, right?
Yeah.
Because people don't like. Can you imagine if you were playing a sport like basketball and you hated it?
Yeah.
"Ugh, I have to dribble this ball. Oh, this is terrible. I have to dribble this ball. Oh, yeah, I have to shoot it. Oh, shoot the ball. Don't tell me to rebound. Oh, I got rebound. Oh, I'll rebound the ball. Like, how good are you going to be at basketball? You're going to be terrible. You can have, um, amazing athletic talent. You can be, tall enough and all those things like that. But if you don't actually like basketball, you will not be good enough at it, right?
Yeah. Because
Uh,
you have to practice a lot too.
you have to practice and all those things like that. So it's the same situation.
Yeah.
But then, like, yeah, if you're a basketball player that hates playing basketball, then yes, you are very easily replaceable because a coach would much rather have a less talented player who loves a game and who will be, work his or her like butt off and ultimately will be a better teammate than you because you don't, et cetera. So it's a similar situation. Why should it be any different?
Yeah,
So
true.
if again, if your goal is external validation, this type of stuff, you are basically making yourself very replaceable.
Yeah,
So that's something to be careful about.
I agree with you. I think that the majority of what we're talking about with leadership that's coming out is the need to not only love what you do, but it's really, like Kaya said, team player, teammate. You are a part of something, and and I think that that needs to be emphasized. Meaning that makes me feel comforted hearing that, because everybody needs to feel like they have a role, and we all do. We're just not talking about it. We're just talking about, the leaders and leadership and the importance of that, but not the team players and all of us that make the world go round and make everything happen. So,
Yeah, it's kind of twisted. Like you can do anything, like a musical band. Imagine like a drummer says, "I hate drumming." Like how would that sound if they're like bang bang bang, or like
yeah.
an artist say, "Oh, I really hate art." You know, why do
Yeah.
I have this art thing? Um, take any profession, any role where you have to do well to excel, and if you don't like it, then you're just not going to be good at it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true, and that's the same with leadership, and it is not a box to check, that's for sure.
No.
Um, and if you don't wanna lead, there's nothing wrong with you, and if you
No.
are not a leader, there's nothing wrong with you. At the end of life, I can tell you, having spoken to so many people, nobody ever says I was a leader or I wasn't. That never comes up in conversation. Um,
Mhm.
what comes up in conversation are the relationships people had, and the things that they think that, maybe were a legacy or that they made impact with. That's
Mhm.
really it.
Yep.
So, Bruce, I appreciate you coming on today and talking about this with me, because um, I think it's such an important topic that we all get to talk about, leadership and what that means to us. And you're a leader in so many areas. So I appreciate you highlighting all of your expertise in the various areas, including AI for everybody.
Well, I always enjoy this. Speaking of leadership, I want to go back to the um, uh, what said about the number of times that you become the inadvertent leader. It's actually an ongoing joke. It's like, oh, you were participating. So, oh wait, you became the leader. And again, this is in each case I can tell it's like never your intention. It's just again, because you like to actually see things work out and help things work out. So it's about, again, there's the F word, knowing how to be a follower,
Yeah.
of knowing how to be a good teammate, because you actually enjoy this stuff, and because you tend to do things that you really enjoy, and that's why you're so good at those things. Well, I mean, obviously you have natural talent in a lot of different things, so we all overlook that fact. But also, you're taking that natural talent and you're doing things which you actually feel are important, or things that you really like to see get done. So you're actually interested in it. And then, like I said, you there's situations where other people don't want to take that responsibility of being a leader, and then you suddenly say, "Oh, how did this happen?" So,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think we need to look around at everybody who we know, who we work with, who we're friends with, look in our communities, and really say, how can I be involved in the way that I want to be involved?
mhm,
Because it doesn't matter what your title is and how you're involved. But boy, I've seen so many people make impact in huge ways. And, an example is the Rotary Club. I wanted to give a talk about my book, and I went in and I heard all the impacts they were making. I live in this community. And when I heard that, I said, I have to be part of this group. I had no idea. They never took a leadership role. They never gave themselves credit for anything. You never knew that this group gave away, more than 1,000 turkey dinners um, on Thanksgiving. That during COVID, they brought in truckloads of Pampers for new parents, so that they didn't have to go to the stores when it wouldn't have been safe with the new baby. That is leadership. That is something that is quiet. It's much different. And those individuals who don't have the title of leader, those organizations that don't, get highlighted are what's making our world a better place. And so I just hope that we can change our labels so that we can all get out there and do what we loved so the world is better.
Yep. That'll lead to happiness.
Exactly. Exactly. So I hope you have a good night, Bruce, and thanks
Yeah.
for coming on
Did
tonight.
we, Debbie, did we solve the world's problems today?
I think we did. And you know what? I really think Kaya did tonight. Kaya Kaya came on and defined everything for us. I think that for tonight, but we have to come back and solve another world problem.
Yeah, there are a lot of problems out there.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of good stuff out there too.
I know. Maybe we should highlight some good stuff.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who out there who, again, this goes back to leadership things. You hear about the leaders, but there are so many people out there that are doing what they enjoy and they're doing it well.
Yeah.
And so but you don't see that as much on the news or social media or what have you. And I think that's what causes this. Everyone thinks, oh yeah, you've got to be one of those people that
Yeah.
you hear about. So I think there needs to be more highlighting of other folks.
You know what? I think you ought to do an article. So those who have not read Bruce's articles in Forbes, he has more than 85 million reads. You should check him out. You did one on looks maxing, if I
Yes.
remember. I
Well, specifically one type of looks maxing.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that there's leader maxing
Uh-huh.
and leadership maxing and people who are looking to out leader everybody else, to be the best looking leader out there in their own mind. And we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. But
Yep. Yep.
thanks. But anyway, check out Bruce's writing. He's on Substack. He's on Forbes. He's in Psychology Today. He makes science funny. So if you want to learn about bone smashing, you want to learn about looks maxing, you want to learn about some of the things that are out there that are science related, Bruce is going to bring a lot of humor to it, and you're really going to enjoy his readings, his writing. So check him out. Um, Bruce Wiley. And what's the name of your Substack?
Minded by science.
Yeah, Minded by Science. So check it out. And I hope you'll check out my writing on Psychology Today and my writing on Substack, The Right Side of 40. So thanks for coming on, everybody.
There's also your book, The Mentorship Edge.
Oh yeah, The Mentorship Edge. Check it out. If you like mentoring, or if you want to mentor, or if you don't like mentoring, this will change your mind. So check out The Mentorship Edge.
The book is also yellow, so it's easy to find.
That's right. It's
Yes.
fine. All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.